Have you noticed some engineers always tend to get the best projects? They might not be the most technical, but for some reason everyone wants them on their team. Why? That's the right question to ask, my friend. And in today's video, I'll break down 3 core principles that make any engineer invaluable, the kind of person that teams trust, respect, and fight for. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into it. And to be honest, this is what changed my career trajectory as well. I went from working my ass off, hoping that will drive visibility and make people think of me as invaluable, to now working less, yet being picked for those better projects and those high visibility projects. So you're in the right place, my friend. And yeah, now let's get straight into it. So principle 1, they lead without permission. So the problem with most engineers is that they wait to be assigned that, let's say, senior title or any leadership title for them to think that, okay, they need to lead. But engineers who are trusted and respected, they lead without even waiting for the title. And that might look like various things. And for example, let's say if you're in a meeting, most engineers tend to have questions as they're progressing through meetings, but usually they're afraid to ask them because they are afraid to be judged. But these engineers, they don't care. They want to drive clarity. So they might ask those sorts of questions like, can we define what success looks like? Are we optimizing for flexibility or speed? And yeah, things like that most engineers are just afraid to ask. These engineers want to lead with clarity and drive alignment. And if you're one of those engineers who's afraid to ask questions, I'll link one of the videos that I made previously around how to ask questions, even if you feel they're stupid, but still ask them confidently. In another scenario, they protect the team. Let's say a coworker is presenting something to the non-technical people like product, for example, but it's not landing the way they're expecting it to. So these engineers immediately back them up. They do not cross the boundary. They know how to back them up. They might piggyback on something that the coworker said. So for example, that might look like, so to build on top of what Alice said, it seems like this is a flexibility risk instead of an optimization risk. So yeah, they elevate others. They don't cross boundaries. They make people feel heard and understood, and that drives loyalty. And now yet another way an engineer can lead without a title is driving clarity through summarization or acting as intermediaries. So by the end of any meeting, or let's say a complex Slack thread, they might take the time to summarize it with the relevant key points, including the key decision makers in there. So yes, you can use, let's say, Gemini or Slack AI to do this for you. But if you notice, a lot of times it contains more information that's truly required, while engineers, they only need the key ideas and the key frames to know what the next steps are or what decision was taken. So you can definitely leverage Slack AI or Gemini AI and then consolidate the information further to use it to your advantage. Most engineers, they wouldn't even think about doing this. They wouldn't give a shit. But you will be drawing alignment and clarity here. I'm not even kidding, this works great. So just this last week, I summarized a highly complex discussion that was going on, including some principal level engineer and leadership, which also led to some other stakeholders to get involved. So these stakeholders were not involved in the earlier phases of these meetings, so they don't have the most context on why some decisions were made. So I just summarized why we took specific decisions, what trade-offs we had analyzed, or what risks we analyzed and accepted. And that immediately led to people reacting with thank you emojis on my message, as well as a senior staff engineer to personally reach out to me saying like, thank you so much for taking the time to post that summary, because I was so confused with why we were doing it this way. But when you took the time to post that, now it immediately clarified things for me and made me understand, okay, why we took this decision. So it's very powerful. Just use it to your advantage. People will like you. And if you want to intentionally work on building this sort of reputation, I write a free weekly newsletter where I talk about these things around communication, visibility, authority, and how to basically upskill yourself apart from just your technical skills so that you can become that trusted and respected engineer. So if this free newsletter interests you, there's a link in the description. Feel free to subscribe and read those weekly updates from me. Now back to the video. Now let's move into principle 2. They build relationships with others. So engineers, they usually think of them as ICs, like individual contributors, but engineers that people trust, respect, and want to work with, they take the time to build relationships with the relevant stakeholders. That could be your juniors, that could be your peers, that could be non-technical stakeholders like product, and things like that. Because once you take the time to build good relationships, you start getting involved in those relevant discussions, which gives you those enough context and gives you a seat at the table, which you might not have gotten beforehand. So one way that I really like building relationship with others is genuine appreciation. And I truly mean genuine appreciation, not just some flattery just for the sake of it. To go back to the example that I gave beforehand, when the senior staff engineer reached out to me personally to tell me how helpful the message was to him, that was genuine appreciation. It made me feel valued. So in the future, I would want to work with him because he made me feel valued, even though I was, in terms of position, way under him. But took the time to send me a short message which made me feel valued. And that's what I'm talking about. So when you work with your coworkers or when you work with your juniors, if you see they have done something truly nice, take the time to send them a short thank you message saying that you genuinely appreciated this and you feel this drove clarity and alignment for the team. And yeah, you appreciate the time that they took for doing that. So it could be in any particular way. So for example, they caught some edge case which you might have not considered beforehand. So thank them for it. Let's say they put out some documentation which you found really helpful. Again, thank them for it because it helped you build that clarity which you might not have had before. And let's say someone backs you up or helps you push back on things. Again, send them a thank you note saying you appreciate them backing you up. So there's multiple different ways you can approach around this, but the core idea is show genuine appreciation. It will never go bad for you. Instead of giving a more personalized thank you, you can also give a more public kudos to someone. That also works great because the person feels valued equally, if not even more, when you publicly thank them for something. Yeah, just share credits, loop them into the relevant discussions, highlight their contribution in, let's say, your daily stand-ups, for example. Again, there's multiple different things that you can do, but this sort of ties into the point of showing appreciation that can be through personalized messages or through more public messages. That always makes people feel valued and appreciated because as ICs, our job anyways might be lonely, people might be stressed with work, so when you take the time to thank them for something, makes them feel really appreciated and valued. And that again, my friend, is going to build loyalty and make you an engineer that people really want to work with. And I know some of you might be thinking that, wait, do I have to be a kiss ass? No, my friend. Like I said, this has nothing to do with flattery. Show genuine appreciation for someone who genuinely helped you with something. Principle number 3, they're force multipliers. They don't just focus on their own work, they focus on improving output of those around them. So again, there's multiple different ways an engineer can do that. I'll give a couple examples here. So just a quick one that a coder or a programmer can think of, just take your pull request, for example. Most engineers, they just put out a PR and expect people to review it. But engineers who are trusted, they take the time to write out really good descriptions around the context of what the problem was, why they particularly chose to implement it this particular way, and things like that. So it gives the reviewer an idea of the thought process that the implementer went through and helps shed some light on the trade-offs and stuff like that that was accounted for. And if for any reason they disagree with the approach, now the review becomes a lot more collaborative than defensive. Because when someone just posts a review without any description, it's hard for the reviewer to understand why someone implemented the way they did. But maybe the fact that you posted the description with the context maybe helps change the reviewer's mindset as well. Like, oh shit, I had option B in mind, but the way option A was implemented is actually better. So yeah, it not only speeds up review, it sort of teaches others how to think. And on the similar track, they document, not just code. I'm talking more about strategic documentation that people do before even implementing something. So let's say you're handed out a project. Even before you jump into the implementation, you take the time to put together maybe like a 2-pager document which touches on what the problem is, why that problem is important to be solved, how that will affect the company or the team, whatever, and then listing out the various ways you would go around solving that problem, along with some trade-off analysis or the pros and cons of each option with your recommendation of what that is. Again, that not only quote-unquote markets your technical skills because it shows that you think outside the box and don't jump into the implementation using the first thing that comes to mind. You take the time to evaluate options and understanding what option might give the best ROI to the team or the company. And my friend, that might not be the most optimal solution. Some other option which might be less optimal might drive more ROI to the company. But anyways, apart from just that, it also helps others with knowledge sharing. So in the future, when someone onboards onto this project, they know what decisions were taken, why they were taken, and why it was implemented the way it was. But usually when engineers approach documentation, they think of them as writing those wikis and grunt work, but those don't drive value at all. It's flipping it around and doing it before you even start work. That's what drives value and helps people onboard faster, learn faster, and things like that. So apart from this documentation, other engineers might incorporate processes, automations, things like that, that make just life easier for everyone. Especially with AI now, it's becoming easier and easier to do it. So when you find yourself in a position where you're doing repetitive tasks, most likely others are doing that too. So thinking around how you can use AI or any static tools to make this easier and more automated for people, that will drive way more impact than some beautifully coded work that you would put out. So think about what will help people, think from others' perspectives, and see what drives value. You don't have to be the engineer that tries to impress everyone. You just have to be someone that drives value and makes their impact visible, because that in turn, my friend, is going to make you that trusted, respected engineer that people fight for to have on their team. So make that identity shift from being a reliable and hardworking engineer to now being someone who drives value to others. So if you focus on building relationships, reducing uncertainty for others, and being a force multiplier, you won't have to chase those best projects. They will come to you, my friend. And if you're extremely intentional about being that visible, trusted, and respected engineer who is seen as that high impact communicator as well, book a chat with me using the link in the description below. We'll see how working together looks like. And as always, I'm here to help.